The year is 2016, and it's October 2016 to be precise, and I've just unboxed the first PSVR headset. I absolutely love this device, and fast forward 6 and a bit years, and we have the PSVR2. Launched in February 2023, the long-awaited sequel to the original, outdated, admittedly, headset, had a lot to live up to in my eyes. Sure, the original was a completely flawed headset with many designs that I now don't really agree with, but I acknowledge that this was the technology at the time. Now time has advanced by quite a while, and the PSVR2 headset had a lot to live up to, including the technology that we just take for granted in headsets nowadays, and specific upgrades from the original that would have made it really good. And now it's been out in the wild for about 6 months, I've been putting together a list of things that I absolutely love about this headset, and that I don't love so much, including its games catalog, comfort, visuals, controllers, accessories, and much more. So let's dive straight into the PSVR2 retrospective. So strap yourselves in, this is going to be a long one. Let's get stuck right in with one of the biggest things for a headset, and one of the things that I was really looking forward to from one of the design photos that were showed off before the headset came out, and that's the comfort. In terms of comfort, the PSVR2 stands above and beyond most of the headsets on the market right now, even at the tail end of 2023. You can use the Quest 2, most likely the Quest 3, although I haven't tried it myself because it's not out yet at the time of recording, the DPVR E4, the Pico, the Pimax. All of these headsets aren't nearly as balanced or padded as the PSVR2. Now we are talking standard vanilla setup here. You can get attachments and different straps for the Quest 2, which make them about comparable in terms of how comfortable they are, but the PSVR2 is one of the lightest headsets and most well-balanced headsets on the market. You're not going to find something more comfortable than this unless you go and look for the big screen beyond. And overall for comfort, I found the actual weight balancing and distribution to be much better than the original, but I did find the material it's made of to be a little less comfortable, although the original PSVR did tear quite frequently after a bit of use for most users. So I'm glad they upgraded it to be a bit more durable. We just sacrificed a tiny bit of comfort in terms of the materials used, but overall it's still a very comfortable headset. And if you miss that old fabricy feeling of the original headset, you can always grab yourself an accessory with a comfort strap to attach to it and make it feel a bit more comfortable. But we'll get onto that in accessories in a bit. Overall, I'm very happy in terms of comfort. 6 months later with the PSVR2, I've been able to use it for hours on end and not feel uncomfortable at all. One of the other great things that I've learned to appreciate that is admittedly standard on most headsets now is physical IPD adjustment. This was never a thing on the original headset, and after 6 months of use I can say IPD adjustment, although it is a little annoying to adjust for many people if you're passing the headset around, makes the image a lot more clear and is really welcome. And it's something that if you're just using it for yourself and nobody else, you can set your IPD, get that clarity and not have to worry about it ever again. So thumbs up on that one. What I do have to put a little bit of a thumbs down on though is Fresnel Lenses, and this is a bit of a trade-off that you have to do in terms of getting OLED HDR displays on one of these headsets, is that the lenses are not pancake lenses. They are Fresnel lenses which are ringed around the edges that make the edges of your vision not the clearest. It isn't as bad as certain other headsets that also use the same kind of lenses, but the sweet spot is fairly small on the PSVR2, so you have to get that IPD just right. Fresnel lenses do feel a bit outdated. It is a case of, you know, kind of the same feeling I had using the original PSVR back when that launched. Some of the tech on it was a bit outdated. This is nowhere near the level of that, but it is a similar feeling, and hopefully with the PSVR3 we'll be moving on to pancake lenses or whatever the standard is then. But to be honest, to get that HDR OLED panel and that amazing display, I'll happily take Fresnel lenses any day of the week. But what can you actually see through those lenses? Well, the visuals, and they are incredibly clear compared to PSVR headsets that go through USB 3.0 that have a bit of compression through the headset. That is not here on the PSVR2. Through its single USB-C cable, there is no compression whatsoever and the visuals look pretty incredible. They absolutely pop in terms of color because the OLED panels, everything looks pretty incredible due to a combination of foveated rendering with eye tracking and that HDR panel that we mentioned, along with the power of the PS5 to create an incredible image on most games. As always, it's up to the developer to take advantage of this, but games like Resident Evil 8, Red Matter 2, No Man's Sky with the new update, and Horizon Call of the Mountain all look incredible in the HMD of the PSVR2. However, all is not perfect, because in some games more than others, you can notice a bit of Mura, and that is just par for the course for the OLED HDR panels. Unfortunately, this tech comes with that screen door effect that some people will mention. That's essentially what Mura is. Some people notice it, some people don't. It's really a case-by-case basis for me. In certain games, when it gets a little bit dark or grey, in terms of games like Gran Turismo, I can notice it a fair bit, but in most cases I don't notice it at all, and even if I do notice it in games like Gran Turismo 7, I quickly forget about it and start to not notice it once I get immersed into the game. So for me, after 6 months of use with this headset, Mura is not really an issue. I've also got to mention the USB-C cable is just an incredibly convenient thing, and it's a bit of a compliment to the whole headset entirely, because I remember putting up the breakout box, the several cables for the PSVR1, and even to an extent, some PCVR headsets now, linking up a bunch of cables or trying to get the software to work or something going wrong and having to troubleshoot for a while. You get none of that with the PSVR2. You take your USB-C cable, you plug it in, it's plug and play, and you're sorted. There's no adjustment. In the words of Todd Howard, it just works. And it really does. It's the simplest VR setup I've ever used, and that can't be understated. After 6 months of use, if I'm choosing between PCVR and PSVR2 for the same game, even if it maybe is a slightly worse port in terms of visuals, not saying that is the case, but even if it was, I would probably choose the PSVR2 9 out of 10 times because of the ease of setup. Let's talk eye tracking as well, because that's an incredible feature. I mentioned foveated rendering earlier, and of course this makes things look pretty damn incredible. Even with some reprojection in some games, the use of eye tracking helps to alleviate that a little bit by sharpening the area that you're looking at, and it really just is an incredible use of the tech. Eye tracking is also put to great use in games that use it to navigate menus like Horizon Call of the Mountain and Firewall Ultra. I do have to mention Reprojection actually is its own separate thing too. After 6 months of use of this thing, in some games, again, like Mura, it's worse than others, but overall I don't really mind it. I think there's definitely some improvement to be done on the software side of things in terms of Reprojection. There definitely can be something done to make it look a little bit smoother. I know Meta's Reprojection tech is a bit better than this, so hopefully we could get some updates in the near future. It doesn't ruin the immersive experience for me whatsoever. I'd rather take that over a choppy frame rate any day of the week. Let's move down onto something a bit smaller, the controllers. After 6 months of using them, what are they like? Well, they're pretty great, but they are quite wide. So let's talk about that profile first. The controllers are the orbs, and they're pretty wide coming around your wrist in a circular shape. I originally thought they were incredibly weird after using many other VR controllers, but I've gotten used to them pretty quickly, and the only issues I ever run into them are, again, with that form factor. Trying to put my hands together to say hold a pistol feels awkward sometimes in games like the Light Brigade, and overall, I'm not sure whether I prefer this or classic Quest style controllers. I feel like I find myself bumping them into each other a little bit more with the PSVR2, but they do look pretty cool and neat on my desk when they're charging, so it's a trade-off, I guess. The tracking for them is pretty great. I don't really lose tracking at all unless I'm trying to do it on purpose for testing, but the capacitive touch and the haptics can't be understated. I remember jumping into Kayak VR for the first time on launch day and feeling the rain hit the controllers, and it feels like you're really being rained on your hands, and that was awesome. And even 6 months later, I still get that giddy feeling when I jump into Kayak VR and feel that. And that goes for so many different games. The head haptics, the controller haptics, it adds another layer of immersion that I wasn't sure about when I first played with the headset, but now I can't live without. It's also worth mentioning that after 6 months, I've had no problems with the controllers. They still feel solidly built, and they haven't failed on me, not even once. So that's a thumbs up from me there. But what good is controllers and a headset if you've got no games to play? And contrary to a lot of stories from the media, there are a lot of games to play on PSVR2. In terms of solid titles, I am firmly of the opinion that we've got more good games on the headset in the first 6 months of having the PSVR2 than the entire lifespan of PSVR. Due to the power of the PS5, the features of the PSVR2, and the ease of porting a game over to the PSVR2 compared to the PSVR, we have an incredibly large library of every single genre you can think of under the sun. For AAA games, you have Resident Evil 8, Horizon Call of the Mountain, the upcoming Resident Evil 4, you've got MMOs like Zenith The Last City, you've got simulators like Kayak VR, you have shooters like Pavlov, Firewall, Alvo and Crossfire, you have racket sports games like C-Smash VRS, you have massive survival exploration games like No Man's Sky, you've got racing sims like Gran Turismo 7, you've got melee combat games like Swordsman VR, you have VR minigolf with Walkabout, you have roguelikes with the Light Brigade, you've got VR Amazon Jungle Survival with Green Hell, you've got co-op zombie survival with Survive, You have horror games with Switchback VR. You've got TV show tie-in games that are way better than they have any right to be, like The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. And I could honestly go on and on and on and on. There are so many great games for this headset, and anyone who's telling you otherwise either is being disingenuous or has no idea what they're talking about. However, we do have a lot of indie games that a lot of people will rightfully just look over completely. Some games just aren't really worth your time, and although I do cover them on the channel just for exposure to get them out there a bit in case a lot of people want to play them, I understand that a fair few of the games on the platform are just too low budget and not very enticing to many of the players. And that's why I believe going forward, we need more first-party support from Sony. That's kind of a given. I'm hoping at the next showcase or whatever event they do that's very big, we'll get some more announcements. But in terms of third-party games, we've got a lot coming. We've got Phasmophobia, we've got Ghostbusters, we've got Broken Edge, we've got Vertigo 2, we've got a ton of games coming our way over the next year. So the only thing missing from that is Sony's AAA first-party games, and I do hope that we get those. But overall, in terms of games, I'm incredibly satisfied with the lineup that we've got, and I already have a bit of a backlog, so thumbs up in that department. Finally, let's just cover accessories, because 6 months into the lifespan of this headset, we've got some good stuff and some missing areas. Already, we've got head straps, which are great. They go over the top of the headset to support from the top if you need it, which I do. We've got comfort kits to cover the front and back of the headset to make them a bit more fabricy and a bit more comfortable and to absorb sweat. We've got third-party chargers for the controllers if you don't want to buy the official £40 Sony charging station. We've got prescription lenses that I've reviewed a couple of on the channel, and of course the links are in the description for all the stuff that I reviewed. And we've also got gun stocks. We've almost got everything that you could possibly want, and I'd say the only thing that's really missing would be a wrist strap, which I absolutely love on the Quest style controllers, so you can let go of the controllers and they stay in your hands attached to them. Those are really great, and I kind of wish that we'd have those for hand relief on the PSVR2 Sense controllers. But apart from that, accessories have been really great. Let's also talk the software side a little bit. As a creator, this thing has been great. You don't need a capture card to record a solid social screen now, because for a bit of context, on the previous headset, you'd record through the PlayStation's capture feature and it would look incredibly warped and oval, but now you can record great looking gameplay just from the PS5 share button, which is greatly appreciated. That stuff is awesome, especially for capturing moments back in time, straight from the PS share button. It makes being a creator easier than ever, and to get a good angle from that you now can with the PSVR2, it's honestly great. Having features like pass-through as well are just greatly appreciated. So overall, on the tech and software side of things, this headset outperforms the original by a mile and is either on par with its competitors on PC or succeeds them, in my opinion. So yeah, 6 months into the life cycle of PSVR2, and what's the verdict? It's a big thumbs up from me. It's everything that I wanted and more from an upgrade from the original PSVR, and I'm thoroughly enjoying my time with it. If you're looking for a plug-and-play VR headset and you're already in the PlayStation ecosystem, this is going to be a lot cheaper to get you into VR and a lot easier than a PC VR setup if you don't already own a PC. If it's your first foray into VR and you're not quite sure, you can always wait for a sale on Black Friday or Christmas. I'm sure they'll come around. But if you're adamant about VR, chances are you already have one of these and just came here to have somebody else verbally support your purchase, I guess, which is fair enough. But if you're looking for a stepping stone into the world of VR, I can personally recommend no better and easier to use headset than the PSVR2. But of course, it does also require a PS5, so always keep that in mind. But ultimately, 6 months later, I'm incredibly happy with my purchase, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for this incredible system and headset. Thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy, feel free to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you all in the next video.